Welcome, my friends. Kevin Shirky here, the Indiana Jones nerd yet again, and I am sitting beside design director Jens Anderson, and this is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I played Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and I loved it. It made me feel like Indiana Jones. I was experiencing a new Indiana Jones movie, except I was Indiana Jones. Now I finally get to talk about my gameplay experience with you guys. This video is going to be free of spoilers and will focus on what the gameplay was like. If you would like to see a more thorough breakdown of the gameplay including spoilers, I'll put a link in the end of the video for you. Initial thoughts. I played for about 2 hours 15 minutes and I loved every minute of it. There were moments when I had to sit back and take it all in. It was like I was watching a brand new Indiana Jones movie, like I said. The story is deep but easy to follow, and you follow every step of the journey as Indy. I got to play all of Marshall College, a few minutes of Vatican, and well over an hour at Giza. There is so much variety in the gameplay. Sometimes you are exploring and solving puzzles, sometimes you are sneaking past guards, sometimes you are in epic fights, sometimes you are platforming, sometimes you are avoiding deadly animals and traps, sometimes you are enjoying lengthy and phenomenal cutscenes as if you are watching an Indiana Jones movie. And every single one of these gameplay elements is satisfyingly executed. Let's start by talking about the combat, which I'm sure a lot of you are curious to know about. Like with Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb, you have a separate button for each fist, but in this case, it's the left trigger and the right trigger. You can do fast punches, or you can hold the trigger for a strong punch. The right bumper controls the whip, which you can tap to crack or hold to grab hold of an enemy with the whip. The left bumper is for blocking and parrying. The fighting mechanics felt pretty good to me, although fighting isn't a walk in the park. I found it's wisest to look for bottles and melee weapons that you can use to get the upper hand. The whip is also very helpful to level the playing field against armed enemies. Engaging multiple enemies is tough and enemies don't take turns. They will surround you and one will start attacking you from behind while you're trying to knock out the other guy. Indy has a weight to him. He isn't Lara Croft doing somersaults. Action is fast, brutal, and realistic. Guns hurt. The big brutes kill you with one shot from the pistol. You definitely want to avoid these guys or disarm them with your whip, or shoot them with your own gun. You can pick up enemy pistols, rifles, and machine guns, but you can't store them in your inventory, and you drop them when you pull out your lighter or camera. The guns are very useful when encountering tough enemies or multiple enemies, but the problem is it usually results in more of them being alerted and they come running. During the gameplay, Indy is sometimes alone and sometimes followed by an NPC ally. At Marshall College, this is Marcus, and at one point, he helps you lift an object. At other times, it is mainly Gina, but there will be other NPC allies accompanying you at different points of the game. Gina will help you in fights. I got into a fight with some Nazis and she put out her dukes and engaged with one of them. But this isn't going to save you if there are a lot of enemies after you, especially if they have guns. One thing I learned is that a direct approach is not always best. I wasted a lot of time trying to power through areas, getting to an objective only to die again and again. It is best to take a moment and look for alternate routes like zip lines. I think everything I mentioned so far are great examples of how the game made me feel like Indiana Jones. And it's only the tip of the iceberg. There is a major emphasis on using your tools like the lighter and whip in creative ways. And there are so many nooks and crannies to explore with hidden secrets and side quests. Now, puzzles. No two puzzles are alike in this game. And like Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, you are going to have to think about each puzzle in unique ways. For example, a puzzle at the Museum of Marshall College has Indy recover artifacts from a smashed display and match them to their spot in the display to determine which item has been stolen. In another section of the game, Indy will need to explore secret chambers for certain artifacts, but he can't do that unless you produce fire to clear out some debris. so Indy can go to the market and buy a lighter. This type of thing felt very much in the spirit of Fate of Atlantis. A big part of my gameplay session took place in Egypt, which is an open world full of optional side quests. I encountered several side quest options here, but I chose to stick to the main story because I wanted to get as far as I could. And again, I'll go over everything I found in a spoiler video. But just as a minor example, you can find a wanted poster describing 2 minor characters, or you can find someone trapped behind a locked door. Neither of these tasks could be solved in just a few minutes, so I didn't spend a lot of time on them. Egypt was packed with civilian NPCs who you could interact with, and they would all have several lines of dialogue. The vendor you buy the lighter from will pose for a picture if you aim your camera at her, and Indy indicated that her pet monkey was up to something, but I couldn't figure out what he was talking about. Indy can find disguises in the game, and as I mentioned in a previous video, the Tanis dig site disguise is one of them. However, there are certain restricted areas like the German campsites where the disguise will not work, and Nazi enemies will open fire on you. The Egypt section of the game is so satisfying to play. It really does feel like you're living Raiders of the Lost Ark, an open world full of discoveries to be made as you tiptoe your way around a German excavation. It was exactly what I wanted from an Indiana Jones video game. I mentioned the whip briefly, so let's talk about it. You can tap your whip to crack it, or hold the trigger to grab hold of an enemy or whipping point with it. When you whip a whipping point, you have several options, and it's not just an automatic swing across a gap like it is in the previous games. You can run and jump forward to swing across, or you can walk up a wall to scale it like Batman, or you can hold the left trigger and Indy will be able to free climb up and down the whip. As you've seen from the trailers, you can use the crack of the whip to disarm enemies, and by holding the whip button, you can grab hold of an enemy and pull them close. However, you cannot do this with the heavy brute guards unless you have a certain adventure book perk unlocked. Speaking of which, I saw a bunch of adventure books in the gameplay. They might improve aspects of your health or stamina, or make your melee fighting more effective. You can sprint by pressing the left stick, but your stamina drains fast, which is why these types of perks are very helpful. The perk known as True Grit, which was teased back in August, has been renamed as Lucky Hat. This perk gives you a chance to self-revive if you can crawl over to your fedora after losing a fight. This was the most interesting perk to me, and I used it a ton because I lost a lot of fights thanks to my brash approach to certain situations. As I explored certain chambers in Egypt, I encountered swarms of scorpions. You can pick up a torch and wave it around to usher them away from you, but the problem is that they repopulate the room quickly. In one chamber, you had to transport an object from one side of the room to the other with a ton of scorpions in the middle. I wasn't able to figure out how to do it without taking damage, so I just powered through it. So, as you know, the gameplay is in first person, and I absolutely loved it. The weight of Indy's body feels right, and being in first person provides a lot of immersion and authentic level design. When you platform using a whip or zipline, or you explore a narrow passage, the camera will switch to a third person perspective, but you cannot see Indy's face in these moments. The camera turns with Indy's head. But you will see Indy's face a lot in the phenomenal cutscenes. No joke, you guys, the cutscenes in this game are terrific. I saw one particular cutscene that was so perfectly Indiana Jones. It was fast, it was fun, it was suspenseful, it was unpredictable, it was character driven, it was brilliantly written, it was brilliantly staged, and it was brilliantly acted. It was a top-tier scene from a top-tier Indiana Jones movie. I'm telling you guys, this game is so friggin' good in every way. Every aspect of it is so well thought out and executed. Coincidentally, I was the only person who managed to reach this cutscene during the gameplay session, and my friend Alex Arnold was the only person to reach it in the later session. So, the Bethesda employees were really impressed that only the 2 big Indiana Jones fans managed to get that far. And there actually was more gameplay available after the cutscene, but we only had a limited time to get as far as we could. The acting is great. Indiana Jones and Marcus Brody are obviously portrayed by new actors, and they did a great job. I felt totally immersed. These were the same characters I had watched in films time and time again. Maybe an odd line here or there, may have seen a tad bit off, but overall, they were very believable in the roles. The other actors were terrific as well. Voss is a fantastic villain for sure. I was a little unsure about the henchman when I saw his over-the-top performance in the cinematic trailer from back in June, but in the scene that I saw, he did pretty good. No complaints about Gina either, or any of the other characters that I saw. Gina makes a good companion, and I was never annoyed by her even for a second. I did encounter a few minor glitches, but the developers assured us before the gameplay session that the game isn't finalized yet. And by observing us, they were able to get some useful information to help in that process. I'm talking only 3 glitches in like a 2-hour, 15-minute gameplay session. Before the gameplay session began, we were treated to a brief presentation by design director Jens Andersen, and a 10 to 15 minute video showing a lot of footage from the other parts of the game. But no new locations confirmed beyond what we already knew. I'll go more in depth about what I saw in that video over in the spoiler video that I'm making, which is going to be linked at the end of this video. During my 90 minutes or so spent in Egypt, I did not encounter Sallah or any reference to him.
Almost as good with you as Salah's uncle.
There were brief references to 2 other legacy characters though, which I will mention in the spoiler video, and I believe that neither of them are in the game itself though. There are a lot of subtle references that are really easy to miss. For example, Marcus is talking in his sleep at one point and references a funny aspect of his character that you will all recognize. There are references to young Indiana Jones, and I can confirm that Antonio calling Indy Henri is a deliberate reference to young Indy, because Indy remarks that he hadn't heard that name in 19 years since he was in an infirmary. I also noticed that Indy's office has drawings of the Chachapoyan idol and a pair of crosses which slightly resemble the Cross of Coronado and bear the number 1912 on them, which is the year the opening scene of Last Crusade took place. The story is rich and deep, and there are a lot of nuggets of information and documents that color in the world of the story. At one point, you can find a letter from Adolf Hitler to one of his subordinates, and there's a reference to an archaeologist in Petra, and a journalist who Indy said that he hasn't seen since the incident with the volcano. I'm not sure if this was a reference to a book or something, maybe one of you guys can fill me in on that. You'll find some fun things at Marshall College also, including a bust of Abraham Lincoln and a map to the Temple of the Forbidden Eye. Indy's classroom is in the game, and it looks exactly like it did in Raiders of the Lost Ark, complete with the skeleton poster and a bunch of stuff on Indy's desk, including an apple in the corner. The game did not prompt me to go into his classroom. This was something that I did on my own, just exploring around because I had seen a map and I knew that it was there. And this was pretty cool to see that and to walk into Indy's classroom that we've seen so many times in the film. You can hit the start button to pause the game and pull up a gameplay menu, but more important is the back button, which will pull up the level map in Indy's journal, but not pause the game. Pressing the bumpers at this time will switch to your objective screen, where you can keep track of and select objectives to display on the map. Then, the Adventure Books tab, where you can purchase the abilities you find by spending adventure points, and finally a tab called Travels. They told us not to mess with this tab because it would crash the game during this gameplay demo which they had set up, so I avoided touching that tab. But I imagine that you may be able to use this for traveling to previous locations in the game, like Marshall College. Kind of like how Fate of Atlantis would let you travel between locations during certain sections of the game. The D-pad is used to select certain items. Down is for your camera and lighter, right is for your inventory, which you can use to select outfits, up is for bandages, left is for pistol. And I do believe that that covers everything regarding the gameplay from a non-spoiler perspective. But there is one other very cool thing that I wanted to share with you guys. I took a few minutes out of my gameplay session to sit down with design director Jens Andersen. I asked him a few questions, and I also gave him a small gift on behalf of the Indiana Jones community. Unfortunately, the audio didn't turn out very good, so I am going to add subtitles to his responses here. Jens, what was the most challenging and the most enjoyable things about this game?
We've been working on this for a while now. I think the most challenging part is getting it all together. We want to make this really immersive, single-player adventure. Kind of figuring out what that is with doing choosing channels, all the different features that are still in there, the web, the revolver, the puzzles, the authentic story. What is that game? That's the challenge.
Well, the Indiana Jones fans are very excited about this and about the hope for the future of the brand. Is there hope that you guys might look into making a follow-up game?
We're looking at this game obviously for now. It's almost time we want to get it out there. After that, we'll actually.
And how will the Order of the Giants DLC complement the game?
It will come spring next year. That's almost as much as I can say. It's a story-driven DLC that has on.
Well, thank you so much, Jens, and on behalf of the Indiana Jones community, I would like to give you this little pin here made by my friend Ron Phelps. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Once again, I was highly satisfied with the gameplay and am as giddy as a schoolboy waiting for the day that I get to play it again. This brilliantly crafted game is not only going to be a welcome addition to the Indiana Jones canon, it is almost certainly one of the greatest Indiana Jones experiences. Yes, even as good as the original trilogy of movies. Here's a link to the in-depth gameplay breakdown, which will include spoilers for the early sections of the game, so check that out or leave your comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I wish you all fortune and glory. Bye-bye now.